be formed before you start doing those things. But it's the protection, variation by agreement. That's it.
Well, with David Williams, his website is the right of self-determination.com, the right of self-determination.com. So you can come on shows such as mine and say what you say, and you feel totally safe and secure. Is that true? From anybody giving you a hard time for saying what you're saying?
I feel safe and secure because I have immunity and I know I have it. And I also had, the variation by agreement. And that specifically comes through the immunity. And so I look at it this way. If you guys are going to put out a movie that's actually showing people that they can come out of the system, and I go out there and talk about coming out of the system, then I'm doing exactly what you guys are doing. So I'm not harming anyone. I'm actually telling people the truth of what it's going to take to be free.
And go ahead.
Freedom is just a buzzword today. Freedom requires the acceptance of total responsibility to learn how to self-govern.
So you think that that's what this lifetime for a lot of people is about, to really dig in, to really, once and for all, figure out how to be free in this thing we call governments and treaties and people and organizations?
I really believe that that's part of it. We can talk about a spiritual walk, but I love what Dan Millman says about that. Your spirituality begins on the ground. And so, one of the things that I do with this is I've become very grounded in my core beliefs. And a friend of mine used to say, what we do and say every day is the measure of our spirituality. Everything else is just religious talk. And so one of the things that I looked at in the process of this coming out are the things that, like I said, they write the laudable terms. And Roosevelt, in the Jamestown Exposition, he said this: men can never escape being governed. They will either govern themselves or they will submit to being governed by others.
It's pretty powerful.
Yeah.
So this idea of diplomatic immunity, I guess, is going to be very fascinating for folks listening to this show and the podcast a year from now. Why would they, the powers that be, recognize that, and when all the other stuff that the people around the country have been doing for years and years, they just get stomped on? Why is this any different?
The reason it's different is because this is what they always did. This is how they gained their freedom. They came out from among what they, obviously, I'm going to use a term that they use. They came out from among the great unwashed masses, or the horde, those that don't want to self-govern and those who don't want to take responsibility. And they are very adamant about it. They will honor the agreements at an international level. Now, on a domestic level, you're asking one nation state, one country, to honor its own codes, rules, and regulations. And I need to state something here. Well, let's go back in history. Do you mind if I talk about something that people don't?
Yeah, fine.
Okay. There's a book that you can find online if you just type in on a Google search, U.S. Still British Colony.
U.S. Still?
Mm-hmm. And this is a book called The U.S. is Still a British Colony.
Okay.
I'm not going to mention who writes it, and it's the first thing that pops up. And if you click on the link, you can click on the civil-liberties.com/books and click on the first link, which is America's Subjugation to Britain in a Nutshell. This person's describing some of the same things that I talk about as far as the debt. But if you then put in I'm going to hit Control F, which is fine, and I'm going to type in the word Henry, which is Patrick Henry, okay? I'm going to go down here to June 5th of 1788. And here's what Patrick Henry had to say about the Constitution. Just one of the things. He spoke voluminously about this Constitution, and he did not like it. Consider how our only remaining defense we have left is destroyed in this manner, besides the expenses of maintaining a Senate and other House in as much splendor as they please. There is to be a great and mighty president with extensive powers, the powers of a king. They didn't tell you in school that the president had the powers of a king, did they?
They certainly act like it, don't they?
Well, let me tell you how this comes out of the Constitution, because all the patriots out here do not believe that this is right. They believe that that this Constitution somehow protects them, and that the things that were done by Lincoln and the things that they did with the 14th Amendment and forming up a corporation underneath the de jure government, that's all legal. It says in Article 1, Section 8 that the Congress has the power to pass all laws necessary. And they're the ones that define what necessary is.
So this game that they kind of put out there, this matrix, if you will, is all legal and lawful. They knew exactly what they were doing.
Well, yes, and now these are the powers of Congress. Article 1, Section 8 says, the last sentence, we have the power to make all laws necessary to implement and fulfill whatever it is we're trying to accomplish here. And since they're the ones that are defining necessary, then they do what's necessary. If they pass it into law, obviously it was necessary. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Now, but the bigger issue for me was, okay, what happens? Where did Patrick Henry get this idea that the president was going to have the powers of a king? And that's in Article 2, Section 3, under the powers of the king, under powers of the president. He shall have from time to time to give Congress information on the state of the Union and recommend to their consideration such measures as he shall judge necessary and expedient. He may on extraordinary occasion convene both houses or either of them. So on extraordinary occasion he can bring the houses together if they have adjourned. Or in cases of disagreement between them with respect to the time of adjournment, he may adjourn the Congress, them, to such time as he may think proper to bring them back. So if Lincoln suspended Congress, he was using Article 2, Section 3, and he had the right to do it. And once Congress is gone, who's left? The president with the powers of a king.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, we're going forward in history now to 1860 and what happened. He suspended both Congresses because it said, okay, in case of disagreement, I can suspend them until I deem to bring them back. And now that I'm in power, I'm going to start passing executive orders because there's nothing else left. I'm the executive. And so they passed the Lieber Code in 1863, which is called the Government of Armies, and it is martial law, military rule, and it has never been undone and has never been suspended.
So that's why presidents can do executive orders today, and people that are United States citizens are bound?
Yes, they have to follow them.
And what do we have to do to not be United States citizens? Can that be done by filing some kind of papers?
Well, you have to, like I said, you have to do what they did. Understand what they did. Understand that declaration. Mm-hmm. That declaration was let me use a term, and maybe you'll understand this, the word tort. People talk about tort claims. Mm-hmm. But the word tort means to twist or contort. And it's, this is what we would understand. It's not a good term, right? Because something here is twisted. And when they wrote the Declaration of Independence, they basically were saying that in the first paragraph, they were going to assume their separate and equal station. And in the last paragraph, they said, it's to each other we pledge our lives, fortune, sacred honor, to assume our separate and equal station among the powers of the earth. That's what they were doing. They were forming a new state. They were forming a new nation. And in the middle of that, they stated all the reasons why. I call that the tort claim. The king is busting down our doors, garrisoning his troops in our house, hauling us off to mock trials, not listening to anything we have to say, to any of our petitions, asking him to follow the Constitution, which was the British Constitution, follow the charters and the agreements that you've given to us to run our own colonies over here. And when I say our own colonies, they were still British subjects, these men. So it was still British